Winning cures everything. Now for your hosts, Gary and Chris.
Welcome in, Winning Cures Everything. It is the Sunday, November 7th edition of the show, the College Football Week 10 Reaction and Recap Show. I'm Gary.
I'm Chris.
And whoo, boy, did we have a strange Saturday. Chris, I know that we say it. It feels like every weekend this season, but it was definitely weird yesterday. It felt like everybody struggled that was ranked, and everybody had some fight to them that we hadn't really seen from like the unranked team. So it was a fun weekend of college football, and I am pumped to talk about it. The first thing that I want to mention is two words: volatility and consistency. And we have a whole lot of volatility and not very much consistency across the sport. I don't know that there is very many things other than Georgia's defense that make sense so far right now. Did want to mention Arizona and UNLV both got wins. So there are no winless teams left in college football. That is always good when you don't have somebody that goes over, right? Because you work so damn hard to get to, the football season, and to have at least something to celebrate is definitely an awesome thing. We did have 8 top 25 teams that lost yesterday again. That is 2 weeks in a row, and 7 of them were to unranked teams. And I'm telling you, Tuesday night is going to be insane. I cannot wait to see, as you call it, the mental gymnastics that the committee is going to go through to try and justify anything that they do. They could tell me anything. I might buy it at some point right now, because I have no idea. I don't know what they're going to do. If I see them drop Cincinnati for how they played against Tulsa and yet not drop anybody else, then we might start having some issues. But what were your overall thoughts from Saturday?
The overall thoughts of Saturday is it's continued to be chaos, which is entertaining. We do have a lot of entertaining games, which is good. We want close games. We don't want a bunch of blowouts. But everybody's expectations are different depending on, are you supposed to be here? Are you not? Do you belong or do you don't belong? When Ohio State and Alabama scrape by the chin against bad football teams, everyone gives them a pass and says, well, look, they're winning, and it's hard to win, and it's hard to win as much as they win and be consistent. But when Cincinnati does it, they say, well, look, they barely beat these guys. Well, Cincinnati's schedule is substantially more difficult up to this point than Alabama's schedule. You can say that we just know Alabama's better. Well, I mean, if you just know, then I don't know how to argue against that. The whole purpose of sports is you're not supposed to just be able to know. You're supposed to actually be able to show it on the field. And we make excuses for some teams, and we hold others to different standards. And we do it all the time. And it's the thing that bothers me the most. Now, I'd like to take one quick second to say this. I get animated. I get frustrated. I'm about as raw and as honest as I know how to be on this show. And I'm that every week. I guess we recorded on Thursday afternoons. It comes out on Friday. That show might be the most embarrassed I've ever been of like things that I've said and the way I put them. And that bothers me. But that's a me problem, not anybody else's problem. And I'm almost 40 years old. I don't, it's okay to have these feelings that these people are terrible people and the sport is ran the way it is. I don't know that I think it's okay to just continue to be as vulgar and aggressive, I guess you would say, because they're not going to change, and they're not listening, by the way. So it doesn't matter. If I thought the things that I said would make anything better, then I might continue to say them. But I was ashamed of how I came across when it was over with. That's the first time that I almost the next day said, hey, that evening, before we upload that, I don't know how we want to do it, but then I realized how complicated that is the way we do the show. And I just said, the hell with it. We run it. We're honest. We don't fake anything here.
Yeah,
we don't manipulate anything here. What you get is what you get. And if I regret it, then I just come on later and say, I'm sorry.
That definitely works. So off topic on that, you made me think of something. I said last week that Old Dominion was not in the Sun Belt yet or whatever. Mistake, they are in the Sun Belt. But aside from that, which was it just a full show on Thursday or on Friday, or was it a specific topic? Because it was
talking about the committee people, and it was some of this Aaron Rodgers stuff as well.
Okay, I know what you're talking about with the committee. So I remember that, but I think that's what people appreciate about you. There is very little filter. I will say that you have some filter because there are some things that you would like to say that you don't, but you're honest, and I think that's what people appreciate. Well. So I don't want you to change too much.
But I think they're going to continue to screw it up. I think they've already made up their mind what they want this 14 playoff to look like. Now, they say every week that they haven't, and they say every week that it's going to change, it's going to evolve, unless something drastic happens, unless one of these big teams really screws up. I think they already have what they want it to look like. And they got a couple of contingencies. They don't maybe expect Oregon to be there. And here's the thing. There's certain teams that they don't care if they make it or not. I think there are certain teams that they absolutely care that they don't make it, and they want to make sure they don't make it. And that's because there's a hierarchy of a Power Five. That's why we call them the Power Five. When everybody who watches this sport understands the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and the ACC aren't close to as good as they're not so much better than the American and the Mountain West that they deserve to be separated by any metric at all. But we've got three of the quote unquote Power Five, the belongs in one pot that get credit that they don't deserve.
True. Now, what you're basically arguing here is that we don't need expand. Like, this is a year that you would say that you don't need expansion unless
no, that's not true at all.
Not
I think
you.
We need
I'm
more
just
expansion
saying,
I think we need more expansion now than ever. Because, yes, Georgia is the number one team. Unless we're just going to give it to Georgia, then we don't need expansion. Let's just give it to Georgia and nobody else play any extra games. But if we're going to have a playoff, you mean to tell me you've got three teams that are going to make it in that are any better than the six teams behind them? See, we're not separating Georgia from everybody else. We're separating 2, 3, and 4 from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And 12 is no different than 2.
True.
That's what I'm arguing for. That's why we need more expansion.
Yeah, no, I could get down with that. I see where you're coming from with it. Ball Python Love jumped in. He said, Fresno State lost, so happy. Ethan Broom said, how impressive is it that Notre Dame held David Bell to only 64 yards? Yes, David Bell is a giant killer. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think everybody kind of looks the same right now. There is no distinguishing difference between number 2 Alabama and Baylor was at 12. But toss anybody out there that you want. Any
of the next 7 teams. It doesn't matter. There's no separation from them. So you're gonna pick 3 of them, and I guarantee you all 3 that you pick are all gonna be the belongs. They're all gonna be a member of some big club that you're not in.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. You want to hit these games?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go on and roll it off. Of course, you guys know I'm an Alabama fan. Chris is an LSU fan, and Alabama won last night 20-14. Alabama averaged 0.2 yards per carry last night, only totaled 6 rushing yards on 26 carries. They threw the ball. Bryce Young did 24 out of 37 times, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns. The fake punt early in this game, that jump pass, that was a brilliant decision by Coach O and Jake Peets. Let you know that this was going to be a dogfight for sure. LSU, 5 out of 7 on 4th down. They decided that they were going to go for it, and they were going to go and try and get this win. They did have 2 turnovers that led directly to 13 Alabama points, gave Alabama short fields, and that was basically the difference in the ball game. So from the Alabama side, I would not be surprised to see both Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone gone after this season. There does not seem to be a lot of, again, the buzzword from the beginning of the show, there is a lack of consistency with the Alabama offense, and part of it is that there's no leaders, right? There's nobody on that offensive line There's nobody in the receiving corps. There's nobody that is a vocal stand-up leader, and they had that in spades last season. Now, it does take time to develop that, but part of me wonders how difficult the transition from the NFL back to college is for two guys that have been in the NFL for so long. Now, that's just a hypothetical whatever situation, because it doesn't look like they get along. It doesn't look like Bill O'Brien is doing what Saban wants to do, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see what happens with that. A win is a win, but this is not a very good Alabama team. Alabama is not number 2 in the country, or at least they don't deserve to be. And we said as much after the CFP rankings on Tuesday. Alabama was the default answer. They didn't want to put Cincinnati up there. They didn't want to give Michigan State the number 2 spot after like squeaking by a win over Michigan. Like I guess Alabama was the default, but they are not the number 2 team in the country. This team will lose again. I said it last week that Auburn is going to beat them in the Iron Bowl, and I fully believe it. This team is not very good. On the other side, LSU, if they had put forth that kind of effort in multiple other games this year, I think that they would be in a much better position. I don't know that O would still have his job, but I think he'd be a lot closer. That looked like a good team last night that was aggressive and fought hard and really wanted to win. And I don't know that I've seen that out of them every weekend. Chris, go ahead, jump in. Give me your thoughts here.
I mean, it looks like same old LSU, no quarterback, bad offense. Just we're used to having a dominant run game that we can rely on. Outside of the Joe Burrow years, my entire life, LSU's offense has been just basically awful. And usually a stud running back or 2 or 3 will carry them.
Hey, do you think, I'm sorry to interrupt, do you think Tyrion Davis-Price is I think he could be a stud, man. Like, I think they found something with him. So
well, they didn't find anything with him. The kid's a stud.
I know,
the
but
kid is an absolute stud.
They didn't play him until
he's one, and the offensive line's not great. And so what he gets, he makes, and it's hard to do that week in and week out, play in and play out. You can do that a couple of times a game, but you can't do that for an entire 60 minutes. You just can't. Yeah. You need something in the way football is played today. You need something from the quarterback position, and we just don't have it. We haven't had it my entire life, and I don't expect to have it much after that unless somebody comes in that's an offensive mind that can recruit. But until that day comes, we're just going to have to be the team that wins with defense and running the football. But we got to figure out a way to get back to running the ball. You talked about Alabama not being very good. I haven't been impressed with Alabama the entire year. There are 2 really bad football teams that you were given wins to 100% because the SEC just props up the brands and continues to give you every call in the world. You should have lost to LSU last night. You should have lost to Florida week 2 or 3 or whenever that was. And both of those teams are god awful. They're just god awful. And so you're not just supposed to not only have the one loss, you should have 2 other losses to 2 terrible football teams. You're no different than the number 12th team in the country or 15th team in the country. Yeah. You just got a big brand, and you got all the best players, and you have all the best coaches. You're complaining about Bill O'Brien and he just ain't getting it done. This guy's an offensive genius. He knows what he's doing about bringing an offensive in. I don't know. Is it a thing where, is it too complicated for the Alabama guys because they're all young and they're pretty inexperienced and they don't know how to run these offenses? I don't know that. I don't know. Is it a thing where he's trying to give Saban what he wants, but also do some of what he thinks is the right thing to do? I don't know the answer to that. I know this guy knows how to coach football. Okay. I know that you have 9 guys on your offensive staff that are all grossly overqualified for the position that they have. And so you can't blame it on play. Play calling didn't hurt you last night. Okay.
It wasn't play call. It bottom line, like the offensive line is not good. Now, when you lose as many guys as they have, then yeah, like that makes sense, right? We saw it with LSU coming off of the 2019 season. Well, Alabama off the 2020 season lost a bunch of dudes off that offensive line. Last night they they missed their center. He was out for the ball game. There was a lot that we, as Alabama, were missing on the offensive line, but the offensive line has not been good all season. Like they are not a good offensive line. And I think the thing with college teams that's different, maybe there's some of it with the NFL, chemistry is so important. And there does not appear to be very much of it on the Alabama sideline right now. And what I saw from LSU that I have not seen, now this was a team in LSU that was missing a ton of dudes, but those dudes looked like they were together, right? I don't know that I have
playing hard. They just don't have a lot of talent. I mean, like I said, we've got one star on offense right now, and that's it.
There was chemistry on that LSU sideline.
Those guys haven't played well together, and they guys haven't played a lot together.
Right, but it looked like they were at least they were all together pulling the same way.
You know why that is, though, Gary? Because you got 11 guys on one side that aren't super talented, and nobody in the country thinks a lot of them, and so they have to work together. And you got 11 guys on the other side that all think they're stars because they all got a shitload of stars on the back of their name, and they all think that they should be the heralded one. And you know what? It just doesn't work that way. And so they're all playing the best they can play, but they don't care about the guy next to them. And those other 11, they got no choice because they're not good.
Yeah, I can see that. And that's where the chemistry stuff comes in. And
there's no coaching that can get that out of those guys.
Well, but they've been able to do it in the past, right? Like unless it's just guys that aren't willing to buy in, and that's what you got to figure out. So either way, Alabama's not a very good football team. LSU is better than they have been this season.
LSU's not better than they have been. They're just not, Gary. That's a bad football team that went in and they caught a good team sleeping. Okay. You look like shit and you're sleepwalking through a game and you don't care to be there. You think it should be handed to you on a silver platter. The whole country just spent an entire week telling you you're the second best team in the country. All those guys were just smelling their own ass the entire week.
It's entirely possible. That Alabama-Tennessee game, it ended up being a 28-point spread between them, but that should have been a whole lot of signs because Tennessee it was a 7-point ball game in the fourth quarter. Like Tennessee just ran out of gas. So, you got any final thoughts on that one before we move off of it?
No, I mean, it's really frustrating to try. It's really frustrating to watch your team and any other team, by the way, compete against a team that has all the best players and all the best coaches, and they get every damn call you could possibly imagine. It's really, really frustrating. And even last night, ESPN, which they're pretty bad about just kind of keeping their mouth shut when the refs blow something. I mean, they were just like, oh, the blatant hold that they didn't call. Like I've never heard Chris Fowler say that before for any team. Not that he's shilling for Bama or somebody else. I've never heard him say that. And I've watched a ton of Chris Fowler called football games. Blatant call right there. They're just not going to call. They're just not going to call that. And I'm just thinking, yeah, we've been watching this shit for a decade. What hell, for 2 decades? It's really hard to beat somebody who's already better than you at everything, and they get everything to go their way. So, yeah, if they lose the game, everybody on that sideline should be fired. All those players should be let go. Just to hell with them because you get everything given to you. That's frustrating. That's really frustrating.
That. Yeah, I can certainly I can see where that would come from. I mean, there's not much else to say on this one. Alabama could not run the football. LSU fought the difference.
Adjusted yards, Alabama got 28 yards. They got 28 yards going forward.
Yeah.
Because college football is dumb and they take sacks away from regular yardage. That's not how math's supposed to work, but college football seems like it's too complicated to do it the right way. But, yeah, they got 28 yards rushing. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
So it was 28 yards rushing on – let's see, 13 and 2, 15, 16, 17 carries.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Had 2 carries from 2 different wide receivers that netted us 1 yard. Roydell Williams only ran the ball twice, and they only ran the ball with Brian Robinson 13 times for 18 yards.
I'm sure Young is an unbelievable talent, and in 2 years, when he's a junior, he's going to be amazing. But right now, if you pressure him, if guys aren't wide ass open, when guys are wide open, you could pressure him all day long. He's going to sling the ball out there, and they're going to go catch it because they're 5-star athletes and they're just freaks. Okay.
Yeah.
But if anybody if they are covered at all, at all, and he has to make an accurate throw under pressure, it is going to the ground. It's just going in the ground.
I told you when we did our preview on Friday's show, the matchup. Do you remember what I told you the matchup of this game was going to be?
Yeah.
LSU's pass rush against Alabama's weak offensive line. Yep. And that's what it was the whole ball game. And yet,
but I just thought so. It's frustrating. It's not frustrating for me because it was glorious to see, but it's strange to see a guy like Bryce, who is, I guess when you got a clean pocket and you're doing everything, everybody loves a clean pocket. Man, when that guy gets pressured, he falls to pieces.
Yeah, I mean he's young. But now
I wonder, can you coach that out of a kid?
Yes, you can, because also like it depends on how you pressure, right? Like Tom Brady does not like guys that rush him directly up the middle, but he can handle it when he got edge rushers.
Nobody likes that.
Right.
Like, that's not a Tom Brady didn't have the patent on that.
I understand.
No quarterback in the history of the world wants you to come straight up the middle at him.
Agreed.
Because that's the shortest distance between two lines.
Right. But what I'm saying is if you look at his numbers when pressured throughout the entire season, he has been like top 2 or 3 in the country as far as his QBR under pressure. He has hit tons of, his completion percentage is crazy. Like his pressure
I watched
rate,
all those plays. All of those plays are when guys are literally 15 yards wide open. Like that doesn't mean he's making an accurate throw. He's just throwing the ball up in the air, and nobody is around your freak wide receiver who's able to go make adjustments because they're not being covered. They're just wide open. That's not on the quarterback. Those could all be just throwaways, because if somebody was covered, they could, half of them could be picks if somebody was covered, but the wide receivers are just so athletic that they bail him out.
Could you imagine what this Alabama offense would be like if they did not get Jamison Williams out of the portal? He had 10 receptions for 160 yards and a touchdown last night.
It's supposed to be the best wide receiving core we've ever seen.
Right. And none of the young guys are anywhere to be found.
No, but who, anyway. Dude, you've got 3 of the best wide receivers in the league, though. Come on, man. I don't want to hear you complain that nobody else is stepping up. Yeah, but I'm sorry that your all-world wide receivers aren't doing enough for you.
But who was the third one? You got John Mechie and you got Jamison Williams.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well,
that's the thing. Like Alabama is used to having a plethora of options, and there are no options right now, right? So there's
God. Everybody in the country right now doesn't care about you've got the number one, or maybe you have 2 of the top 5 wide receivers in the country. I'm really sorry that's not enough for you.
That's yeah, no, I'm with you, but that's what I'm saying.
If the quarterback needs more than that, that guy sucks. And you better be glad he chose to go to Alabama, because if he'd have went to USC, he'd be hot garbage right now. But some NFL team is going to look at all these numbers. They're going to beat off in a closet and get all excited about it. And then they're going to draft him, and they're going to find out he's trash when he gets out here with regular rando dudes. Yeah. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And that was my point exactly.
All of the Alabama guys.
That was my point exactly, was Jamison Williams. Without him, I don't know what this receiving core is, because they have chosen it is going to be Jamison Williams and John Mechie. They had 28 targets between the 2 of them out of 37 passes last night. So, and it's been like that all season. Let's get off of this one. Let's move on to the Big Ten. We spent a good 15 minutes on that. I feel good about that much time. Purdue 40. Michigan State 29, Aiden O'Connell, 40 out of 54 passing, 536 yards with 3 touchdowns. The reverse flea flicker in the second quarter was absolutely hilarious and awesome at the same time. It was a flea flicker that went, I think, a total of like 10 or 12 yards in the air, and then the dude ran the ball the rest of the way. It was awesome. Purdue had a 62% post-game win expectancy in the first game. By the way, Alabama's post-game win expectancy, 60%. But Purdue, 62%. Michigan State averaged 7.3 yards per play and only 7 yards per play for Purdue. But Purdue ran 85 plays to only 63. David Bell, giant killer. He had 11 catches, 217 yards, 1 touchdown. This was insane. This was not anything fluky. This was nothing like that. It wasn't turnovers. It wasn't anything like that. This was very simply like Michigan State had 2 turnovers to only 1 for Purdue, but both teams got 6 points off those turnovers. Like, that's it. So it wasn't it slanted in one direction or the other. Purdue, I'll tell you this, that Purdue matchup against Ohio State this weekend looks kind of juicy right now.
Well, yeah, because Ohio State, we know can't stop the pass.
Aiden O'Connell looks good right now. He did not look good early in the season. He looks good right now, but he really looks good against teams that have holes in the secondary, at least in coverage, right? Michigan State secondary, great at tackling. They are insanely aggressive. But
Ohio State secondary can't tackle or cover, and Ohio State, I don't think, has the pass rush that Michigan State does. So
they don't.
That game, I'm curious to see what that total opens at. That's the number I'm looking forward to more than any. And I'm sure it's going to open in the 70s. I'm certain it's going to be high. I think it's going to be a big number. I don't know if it's going to be big enough to keep me away from it, though.
Yeah. When we talked about this game on Friday, on the Friday show, I gave all these numbers about Purdue and all the different matchup advantages that they had, et cetera, and I still took Michigan State because I assumed, like they have been able to do all season, they would find a way to win. They have the better athletes. They would find some advantage that would give them the ball game, and they couldn't do it. Peyton Thorne, 20 out of 30, 276, 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Walker, 23 carries for 146 yards. Had 1 touchdown. This was rough. This was basically just on the Michigan State defense, which has not been like a huge issue all year.
No, they've been really good. They've been really good. They've had a bend but don't break defense, keeping people out of the end zone, which is a big deal. Yeah. Making teams settle for field goals, which is that's a 4-point swing every time it happens. And they couldn't keep Purdue out of the end zone. I thought there was no way on earth Purdue was going to stop Kenneth Walker. This was bend but don't break with him. Gave up a lot of yards. He only got 1 touchdown, and they could not score in the red zone. That's the game.
I will give Michigan State this. In the third quarter, like late third quarter, middle third quarter, whatever it was, they started to hold Purdue to field goals, right? But they had already given up.
I was about to say, we're already in the 30s by then, though.
Yeah. I mean, Purdue had scored 28 points, but then their last 4 drives all ended in field goals. But
at some point in time, you got to stop them from scoring anything. When you're behind, you can't say, oh, well, they settled for a field goal. That's not that bad. Well, when you're down by 2 scores, at some point in time, the field goal makes it 3 scores, so it doesn't matter that you saved those 4 points. You're still needing more scores, and you're not able to get it. This was a game where they really needed Peyton Thorne to be able to come from behind. I don't know that he's that quarterback. I think he's the kind of quarterback that can play from the front. He protects the ball. I know he had 1 turnover. He plays really smart. He doesn't have the explosivity in him. They didn't come back from 2 scores behind because of Peyton Thorne in Michigan game. They came back because Kenneth Walker bust runs for 40 yards plus multiple times to take him to the house. You just can't hang an offense on that. You can't design an offense around doing that all the time.
Yeah. No, you're 100%
the quarterback
right.
has to be able to get you chunk plays when you are down. At some point in time, you have to be able to score within a minute, 15 seconds of clock. Yeah. And I don't think Peyton Thorne can do that. We haven't seen him do it all year. He hasn't had to do it all year, which is a good thing. But I don't know that he can.
You look at the drive chart, and Purdue scored, like they got points on 8 of their 11 full drives. The drive before the half, like, tossed that thing out.
It doesn't count. Yeah.
At Michigan State, you look at theirs, like they only forced Purdue to punt twice. And Michigan State had to punt 4 times. They missed a field goal. They had a turnover on downs. They had a fumble. Like, they did not take advantage of their opportunities. And yet we're still in the game.
Yes. Like,
they were in the game late, and
until it got, they just couldn't get stops. At some point in time, you have to make the other team punt. If you told me Purdue was only going to punt twice in this game, I would have picked Purdue to win the game. I mean, that I don't need to know any other stats than that. I know that the turnovers didn't kill them, but you lost the turnover battle, things that they haven't done all year. You lost the penalty battle. and you couldn't make the other team get off the field. Those are three things that Michigan State hadn't done all year. They did them this game, and it cost them the game. I mean, it was a combination of all three of those things, but when you lose the penalty battle, when you lose the turnover battle, and when you cannot make the other team punt, you can't win that game. And so you look at this final score and you say, man, Purdue beat the hell out of them. Man, it wasn't as bad as the score sounds, but when you take all the things that you did poorly and you add them all together, it looks like you got your ass kicked.
Yeah, it was – you look at just this number, 11 of 18 on third down, 1 of 1 on fourth down. That means that there were 6 times that they got stops. 4 of them they gave up field goals on. The other 2 they had to punt. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And by the time they're kicking those field goals we just talked about, it was too late. It was too late. If they're making the field goals, you can't catch up because you're already now 3 scores down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was bottom line, Michigan State just got beat. They just got beat. And props to Jeff Brom, who
I was just so
when
I
he
was
had,
gonna bring up Jeff Brom's name.
When he's got a healthy football team, he's really good.
I'm going to ask you this. Do you think Brahms, now if he pulls off an Ohio State win in the shoe, you think his name gets brought up for any of these jobs? Because so far his name hasn't circulated not one time.
Yes.
I think so too. Now maybe not the LSU job, but I don't know, and I wouldn't hate it.
I will tell you this. I think that there are some of these.
Somebody who could coach a quarterback. That's all I want. Is that so much to ask?
I think that there are multiple teams that are a little bit bigger brands than Purdue, and I mean there was actual hot seat talk about Jeff Brom coming into this season.
I know before the season started, and I kind of thought that was insane. I know he has had a couple, but I don't hold the COVID year against anybody.
Not only
know that,
but the year before
I gave everybody a pass for that.
They've not been healthy. They've not had their full allotment of players, and you don't get a bunch of big-time players at Purdue.
Well,
so if you don't have them, where is this
they
team?
got one of the best receivers in the world and more for 3 years, and the dude maybe played 18 games in 3 years. Like, I don't know what you do with that. You recruited the freak. You finally got a stud to come play with you, and you get 18 games out of him. Maybe not. I just made that number up. I'll tell you this. I bet it ain't a lot more than 18.
I don't even know that it was 18. Like
surely in 3 years he got to 18, right?
I'll have to double check that.
I don't think so. That might be a gross exaggeration. You're right. It might be a lot less than that. Bell is a special player. Bell has been amazing. I have seen some. Now, look, nobody likes to take shots at Alabama like me, but I've seen a lot of people say, well, if Bell played for Alabama, he'd be number 1 in the Heisman voting. They'd already have his name stitched on it. We need to be real careful before we just start scratching Matt Corral's name off, all right?
Yeah.
That guy hasn't had a bad game yet, okay? The games that they have lost, he was an absolute warrior god in those games. He didn't make a lot of mistakes, and he fought like hell in them. And he's not having a bad performance, and he's had the best performances of anybody in the country. Let's be real careful before we just start throwing. If he played somewhere else, he'd be getting. I do think he'd be getting more respect than he is. I do think he belongs in the conversation, and I absolutely would be okay with him getting an invite to New York. But anybody wants to throw shade at Matt Corral, I'm here for that fight. I'm just telling you.
Matt Corral, I think, would be getting a lot more talk if he didn't have all of his best wide receivers injured for multiple games.
Look what he's doing with the talent he's got. You put the A on his helmet, and that sumbitch is in the Heisman. He's nobody's touching him.
Yes. Ball Python Love said, smack that like button for the host. We appreciate that. Of course, if anybody wants to jump into the chat, you can always do that. We love hearing your guys' opinions on all these different topics. We have spent 34 minutes on 2 ball games, so let's pick this thing up and start rolling. Next on the board, TCU 30, Baylor 28. Baylor lost 2 turnovers. TCU only lost 1. The Horned Frogs in their first game since relieving Gary Patterson of his duties, and that was a firing. People want to say it was a mutual parting of the ways. It was not. Gary Patterson wanted the coach, period. But TCU outgained Baylor 562 yards to 393. TCU basically put Baylor in a locker.
Yeah. We haven't seen anybody defensively do this to Baylor yet.
No, and honestly,
well, Oklahoma State, right? Oklahoma State did it.
Yeah, Oklahoma State did it, but I am so shocked at this. Max Duggan was out for this game. This was one of my bets. This was, Baylor, to this day, Baylor has never beaten TCU by more than 6 points, and yet I bet Baylor minus 6.5, because when I looked at the matchup and I looked at what was going on at TCU, and I realized this Baylor offense against that run defense, and TCU doesn't have Duggan and Zach Evans. Like there was so much there that looked like it was going to go Baylor's direction. But Chandler Morris, who, by the way, do you know who Chandler Morris's dad is?
No.
Chad Morris, former Arkansas coach. Chandler Morris comes in, first start, freshman. I mean, he is like, he was ridiculous. Like, I don't even know what that was. This game should not have been close. How about Jerry Kill, by the way? Awesome debut as head coach at TCU in his interim status. But Chandler Morris, 29 out of 41, 461 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chandler Morris carried the ball 11 times for 70 yards and a touchdown. He was awesome. He was absolutely awesome. People jumped in the chat, by the way. Nyasor L said, I can't wait until my dogs play Bama. Bryce Young is going to fold. Bama ain't going to be there.
Yeah, they are.
They're not going to be there.
You think A&M will go win out?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. A&M is really good. We're going to talk about them in a minute. But
I agree with that statement, but I still think they could find a loss somewhere around here, too.
You're probably right. And Gary Lewis tossed up the peace sign and said this content is great. Well, we certainly appreciate that. Give me your thoughts on TCU here, because this was a different TCU team. I will say this. I know people that are around the TCU program, and nobody talked about it beforehand, but after the game yesterday, they said it was evident that team had, you hate to use the quit word, but it looked like that team had quit under Patterson. And then you get a breath of fresh air in this game. Like maybe this was the dead cat bounce, right? Where they have this one amazing game and a rivalry game, and then they'll come back down to earth next week. But this looked like a team that was rejuvenated in losing its head coach.
Yeah, you might be right. I didn't see that coming, but I also thought even if TCU comes out and plays great, Baylor has just been so good on both sides of the football that I just didn't see them playing. I didn't see them giving up 30 points. I just didn't. I thought this game could be played in the mid-20s, but I also kind of thought they were going to score mid-30s. And so I kind of thought Baylor by 10, Baylor by 2 touchdowns.
That's what I thought.
And I just, because I haven't seen anybody slow them down. Now they scored 28 points, but in today's football world, that ain't enough. It's just not. And I was surprised that TCU got to 30. I just was. Zach Morris, Jesus.
Chandler Morris.
Chandler Morris. And 90s kid right here. I just didn't see this from their offense. TCU's offense has been explosive all year, but Baylor's defense outside of Oklahoma State, it's been the second best defense in that conference. I thought they would stand up. I thought they would make a statement, and they just got.
Seth Garcia jumped in and said Oklahoma might run the table. I don't have Oklahoma State on here to talk about, but Oklahoma State, when I say somebody put somebody in a locker, Oklahoma State did not allow West Virginia to do anything. Now,
let's be real careful before we just chalk up next week, too, because I know we're talking about Baylor and a loss in this situation. That could have been a look-ahead spot.
It's entirely possible because TCU had not shown the ability to do this. You talked about TCU being explosive all year. Yes, but not to this level. They weren't doing it consistently. No. And
not against this opponent either.
Right.
Like, they look great against Texas Tech. Like they put up big numbers against bad defenses all day long. They hadn't played a great defense yet, Yeah,
you're right about that. Talking about explosive plays, well, we had a bunch of them in Chapel Hill yesterday, and North Carolina beat Wake Forest 58-55. Wake was banged up on defense. Not an excuse. I didn't think they would be this bad, but the offense made just insanely uncharacteristic mistakes for Wake Forest. I mean, just ridiculous. 2 turnovers led directly to 14 North Carolina points. This was a non-conference game, in case you didn't hear the 1,000 times that the broadcast said it, along with everybody else on the planet, so I will announce it as well. Yeah, it was a non-conference game. These are 2 teams in the same state, in the same conference, that only get to play like every 7 years. So, because of the divisional stuff. So they decided they were going to play in the non-conference. Cheers to them for doing it. Cheers to Wake Forest for actually doing this, right? Because a non-conference game on the road in November against a formidable opponent is typically not a smart idea. But cheers to Wake Forest for doing it. You know, this was crazy. So I do think that this means there will be no ACC team in the playoff this year. I think we already knew that, but this just confirms it. And North Carolina, 330 rushing yards. I mean, they were unbelievable. Ty Chandler, 22 carries, 213 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. Sam Howell,
4 touchdowns. Jesus.
Yeah, Sam Howell ran the ball 21 times for 104 yards with 2 touchdowns. Sam Howell only threw the football 26 times, completed 16 of them for 216 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, Wake Forest still outgained them, like 615 to 546. Both teams had insane penalties, like 11 penalties for both teams. North Carolina had 118 penalty yards, and Wake Forest had 119. This was a chippy game. There were players that did not like each other, obviously, on the field. I mean, you look, the turnovers were the difference in the ball game here. Like, you had 2 of them for Wake Forest that led directly to 14 points for North Carolina, and North Carolina had 1 that led to 3 points for Wake Forest. Wake Forest was up by 18 at one point. They were up by 14 in the fourth quarter, and North Carolina outscored them 24-0 at one point until they gave up a late touchdown with 40 seconds left. This was an incredible watch. I don't always like the ping pong, right, on grass. I don't always like the back and forth, but this was entertaining. Like, I can't say that scoring is not entertaining. Like, it definitely is. But this was nuts, and it really kind of came down to, who could put the ball in the end zone more times, which I guess every game does. But you knew there were going to be a lot of points scored here, and yeah, I don't know what to make of it. Don't know what to make of it. You, North Carolina, by the way, I don't know how many teams can say this, but they are a top 10 team that has a loss to an unranked team, and they are also now an unranked team that has a win over a top 10 team. So in the same season. Give me your thoughts here, because this was bonkers.
I thought it was going to be a great game. I knew it was going to be a wild game, and I just thought Wake Forest was going to make sure they found a way to win it. I didn't think when North Carolina needed to get a stop, they were going to be able to get a stop, and they did. And that was just the way the game happened. I knew it was going to be high scoring. I knew it was going to be wild. I knew it was going to be crazy. I took Wake Forest. I took Wake Forest in the point. Took Wake Forest on the money line. This game broke me. This game hurt me easy.
So same here.
Early.
Same here.
But it was, it was everything it was billed to be, which was high scoring, wild, and crazy.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We'll move off that. Let's jump into the comments for a second. Cam Harrison said BYU 8-2, Georgia Southern next game. Last game is at USC. Yeah, BYU could certainly be 10-2. At one point, we were talking about them being undefeated. But they could also lose to USC. They could also lose to Georgia Southern. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. So
BYU's not losing to USC. USC is a dead-ass football team that has quit.
It kind of looked like it last night against Arizona State.
That dead cat ain't bouncing.
No, you probably. Well, I think they already had it right early in the season. Gary Lewis said bummed Fresno State lost, but 21 Bulldogs D is trash. They definitely look like that against Boise. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. BYU could win out from Double O'Neill. Yep, very possible. Only got 2 of them to go. So Seth Garcia said UTSA, they are 9-0. Does the CFP rank them? I think so this week. I think they do this week after Fresno State got bounced the way that they did, because you can't toss Boise in there. Boise's already got 4 losses. Double O'Neill, can't believe the Tar Heels beat Wake. Only game they can win is to knock off an undefeated. That kind of sucks. It's not been a great year for Mac Brown and them. I still think that it is entirely possible that Mac retires this season, maybe next. He just, even yesterday, it didn't look like he was having fun. It looks like he has aged significantly since the beginning of the COVID season. I just don't know. I don't know if he wants to do it, but that's just me brainstorming here. Double and Ill said yes, UTSA gets ranked. Seth wants to know if they can make a New Year's Six bowl. Chris, you think the Roadrunners, meet can make a New Year's Six?
I think they're going to keep them away from that. I really do. I think somebody else above them is going to be ranked and stay ranked from the G5.
Yeah. You're probably right.
I'm going to tell you this. It's going to be in Cincinnati is what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Cincinnati's going to get that G5 spot because they're not letting them in.
They're not going to let them in the playoff. There's not enough significant wins anymore. SMU losing to Memphis yesterday certainly hurt that. Elvin jumped in. People can take shots all they want, but we will still be Alabama, and your team still won't measure up, and Georgia should remember who daddy is before popping off at the mouth. Elvin, I don't know that this is a good time to be talking about how good Alabama is. Yes, historically, yes. This season, probably not so much. Because Alabama, I am an Alabama fan. I have Alabama tattoos. They ain't good this year, period. Like, they may be 8-1, but they ain't good. Gary Lewis, I like Kiffin, but should have rooted for Liberty to win. If we have to endure SEC fatigue, though, better Ole Miss or A&M than Georgia, Alabama. I think we're going to get A&M in Georgia, and I think that'll be a fun matchup. Seth should record if they win out, but I doubt if the committee is rigged. Talking about UTSA. Gary Lewis said 21 SMU. What the hell? I mean, I don't know what to make of SMU from yesterday. Let's jump into another SEC game right quick. Brother. Arkansas 31, Mississippi State 28, and State had so many opportunities to win this ball game, and I told you the other day it was going to be a field goal ball game. I didn't know that it would take State missing 3 field goals for it to be a field goal ball game. But that's what it turned into, and that's the whole point of this game, right? State missed 3 field goals. Arkansas only missed 1. Leach announced after the game that they're hosting open tryouts in Starkville for a damn kicker. State outgained Arkansas by a full yard per play. They ran more plays, but 4 of their drives that got inside the Arkansas 40 ended with 0 points. And you cannot do that and expect to win a game on the road against a good team. And that's what Arkansas is. That's a good team. So
it's a good team. They're not a great team. They're a good team. This is at some point in time, you got to stop blaming the field goal kicker because you should not be settling for field goals.
Right.
That's it. Like, Will Rogers is good enough to get you into the red zone consistently. They have been piss poor all year once they get into the red zone. It's really weird. One of the best defensive teams they played all year is Kentucky, and once they got in the red zone, they punched it in every damn time. But they play these other teams that aren't great defensively. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. But once Mississippi State gets in the red zone against those teams, it's almost like their offense completely falls apart and they just settle for field goals. They're like, oh, we're in field goal range. We'll just take the 3 and we don't care. You got to stop living that way. Gary, you talk about this all the time. It's like these guys get in situations where they think, oh, well, we can always depend on a field goal, so we just stop playing football.
We're going to talk about that with Scott Frost in a little bit.
Yeah. Like, why are you stop playing football? Get into the end zone. What is stymieing you about this over and over and over again? And if it's the talent at the quarterback position, and I don't want to crap on Will too much because he's been better, but
Will
I brought this up when I picked Arkansas. He's a damn yo-yo. This whole football team is a yo-yo. They go up and they go down, and then they go up and then they go down. I picked against them this week, lost by the hook, but it was simply because I don't trust them 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. I mean, bottom line, you look at the stats in this game, State probably should have won the ball game.
Yep.
The post-game win expectancy, which, again, whatever, it said Arkansas 65%. I don't know that I believe that based on the fact that State missed 3 field goals, had multiple opportunities to win the game. Bottom line, they had a kick at the end of the game that was not a hard field goal, and they missed it. Gary Lewis said, Arky, like a box of chocolates. He said they're wildly entertaining. Leach offense struggles in red zone. Out West college football fans already know that. Yeah, no, they do because the field shrinks in that position. So, yeah, it's tough to score. And if you don't have a running game,
well, what's crazy is last week, that's what they did. When they got into the red zone against Kentucky, they ran the ball 4 straight times, and they punched it in all 4 times, 28 points. I kind of thought he's realized this is how I got to play. I used my spread offense, my West Coast offense, this air raid to get us there, and then we lean on the backs to get it in the end zone. And I thought, man, that's a game plan that could last them a while and could do a lot of good for them. They completely went away from it. They didn't run the ball at all when they got into the red zone against Arkansas. They didn't run it successfully at all.
Yeah. Nate Burka jumped in and talked about the Roadrunner team consistently showing out. Hard to go undefeated under any circumstances. That's true. Double O'Neill said Cincinnati versus UTSA New Year's game, consolation prize for both teams. If they do that to those two teams, that will be an absolute sham and a joke, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Cincinnati deserves.
First off, they're already a joke. And secondly, the reason they're a joke is because they have no shame. And it would not surprise me one bit that that's what they would do.
Yeah. No, I could see it. I could totally see it. Modest Cowboy E said, does Texas finish 5-7 in Sark's first year? I've got that towards the end of our list here to go over. I don't think Texas is very good. It's just not a very good football team right now.
I never expected them to not go bowling, though.
I tend to agree with you, but does it surprise me?
It's obviously on the table right now, though. Right?
Oh, yes, obviously on the table.
The reason the question is being asked is because we're all kind of thinking it, and he was the first one to say it. Yeah,
no, you're right about that. Let's move on. I'm going to hit on 2 teams that kind of struggled yesterday.
Okay.
Elvin said, since everybody sucks, who gets ranked where? That I don't know. I'm just as curious as anybody on Tuesday. I would imagine it just kind of stays the same, except Michigan State took an L. They'll be bumped out. But I think everybody just kind of stays. So Cincinnati 28, Tulsa 20. Whoo, brother. Tulsa outgained Cincinnati 446 to 390. They ran 26 more plays. They won time of possession. They won turnovers 3-1. Tulsa did not convert any points off of any of the 3 turnovers. Shout out to Shamari Brooks for Tulsa. 25 carries, 132 yards against that defense with 1 touchdown. That's pretty awesome. I can get down with that. Desmond Ridder has not really looked good in 3 weeks. He's been okay, but he has certainly not been what he was at the beginning of the season. Jerome Ford. I don't know what happened here, but he had 1 touchdown, but only had 7 carries for 24 yards.
We got hurt. You didn't watch the game?
I didn't see him get hurt. I just saw that he wasn't in there after a little while.
He went out early. No, this is what happened.
This is why when I've got 4 games on at the same time,
all world running back comes out of the game. That completely changes their offense. That completely changes everything that they try to do. And to be able to fight like hell without your second best player on the team out like that's a big win. I think that's a big win. Defense stepped up when they had to because they knew the offense was struggling.
Yeah. No, and they
lose
definitely
the second most important player on the team. That's a big deal. You lose him early, you got to fight like hell to stay in this game.
Alec Pierce showed out receiving-wise for Cincinnati. Desmond Ridder had 274 yards passing, 113 of them were to Pierce on 5 catches. He had 1 touchdown, the long of 40. He was awesome. This team is finding ways to win, and that is incredibly important because, like one of these commenters had to say, Nate, it's hard to go undefeated against any circumstances, period. It is very easy to play down to the level of competition, especially when you were expecting to win. So, Modest Cowboy jumped in and said, shout out to Tulsa. They played Oklahoma State tough. They played Ohio State relatively tough, and now they've played Cincinnati. They have had a very tough schedule this year. Yeah, the issue is, again, consistency, volatility, etc. This Tulsa team lost to a not good Navy team, and Navy didn't throw a pass last week. And then you're in a game at Cincinnati where game day shows up, where Cincy is supposed to be pissed off because of how low they were ranked in the CFP rankings. You expect more from Cincinnati. Yes, what Chris was talking about with Ford kind of changes the game, but all in all, and Cincinnati went up 14-0 early, right? But then Tulsa comes right back, makes this a 14-12 game at the half. And then, Cincy jumped back out 28-12, but then they give up points again, and it becomes a game, and then they are in a fight for their lives at the end of the ball game. And I don't look down on this as much as I'm just confused. I'm curious what the next step is, right? I don't know, Chris. Give me some more thoughts here on Cincy.
Well, I mean, I don't know how serious the injury is with Ford. If he's out for a long period of time, it's going to be a problem for their offense. And that's just because it's such a big part of their offense. That would be like, he's not as good as this person, but that would be like taking Walker III off of Michigan State. You just can't take your most dynamic weapon away and think you're not going to be able to make adjustments. When it happens in the middle of a game, there are no adjustments to just be able to fix that quickly. Okay, so the offensive game plan stays as it is. You're using other guys that don't necessarily do what he does to try to build another player like him on the field on the fly. I think this coming week they'll look better than they did this week if Ford doesn't play, because they'll have a week of practice and they'll have a week of game planning, and they'll be able to put guys in better situations that they're more suited for.
Yeah. Devise a scheme without him.
But losing him in the middle of a game, that's a hard fought game. You just want to get out of there with a win. Like I said, we look down at Cincinnati for doing it, but no one looks down at Ohio State. No one looks down at Alabama. Everyone wants to continue to make excuses for those teams, but they want to crush this team and say, look, see, they're not very good. They almost lost to Tulsa. Yeah, well, Ohio State was in a dogfight with Nebraska, and they suck cock.
Hey, Seth Garcia said, does Michigan control their destiny? Double O'Neill said no. I disagree. Michigan was number 7 in the first playoff rankings. You beat Penn State, you beat Ohio State, you win the Big Ten championship, you're going to be in the playoff. Yes, they control their destiny. You win out, you're going to be there. Period. Speaking of Big Ten, Ohio State, 26, Nebraska 17, and Scott Frost. Brother, at what point do you stop relying on a 500 field goal kicker? This isn't the field goal kicker's fault. This is, you are not playing to win. You're not being aggressive. And that's not what we saw out of you at UCF. This is ridiculous.
He's coaching scared.
Yes, and I really, there was a point yesterday. So I had Ohio State minus 14.5 in this game, because when I looked at the matchups, my numbers said that it should be Ohio State minus 11. But I looked at the matchups and I said, okay, there are holes that Ohio State can take advantage of. The Nebraska defensive coordinator, by the way, needs to be high up on a lot of job lists if Scott Frost were to be fired. I think he's going to find a good landing spot, because what he's been able to do with this defense has been pretty awesome. All of their games that they have lost this season, sans this one, have been one-possession losses. And how funny, by the way, at the end of the ball game, the last drive for Nebraska, when they're trying to get down the field and score some points quick, ends with an interception, right? It's almost like clockwork.
It's everything you know of Adrian Martinez. This is a school I kind of want to see Jeff Brom go to.
It would be a lot of fun. I think
he could fix it.
I think it would look a lot like Purdue.
He's a real offensive mind. Not one of those fake ones like Scott Frost is. He's a real offensive mind. He's an architect.
Yeah, no, he definitely is.
He can build it from the ground up.
They held Ohio State to 2 field goals in the second half. 3 field goals in the second half. I don't know what to make of this. I don't think Ohio State is very good. We all assumed that there were 2 sure things in college football this season, and that was Ohio State's offense and Georgia's defense. And I don't know that that is the case. C.J. Stroud had 2 interceptions in this game. He still passed for 405 yards. They, at some point, decided, yeah, you know what? They still ran the ball 30 times. But, only 90 yards. They couldn't do anything against that Nebraska defense. Nebraska outrushed them. Nebraska won turnovers. They won rushing yards. They won penalty yards. I don't know. I know what else they could have done in this game, and that is not play scared. Like, be aggressive. Go and try and get these points. Try and do something, because what does it matter if you lose by 21 or if you lose by 9? Like, you're fighting for your life here, and now Nebraska's 3-7. You got nothing else really to play for other than pride in the last 2 ball games. What? I don't know what to make of Nebraska. Like, this is we could talk about them being maybe the best 3-7 team in the country. What the hell does that get you?
I mean, they're just not good. They're just not good. I mean, they're not. And Scott hadn't got it done, and Adrian hadn't got it done, and it is tiring for somebody new to be in that seat. I don't know who that's going to be, but I think almost anybody's got to be better than what you got.
I thought so. At one point yesterday, this game was 23-17, and Nebraska drove down the field and missed a field goal. Didn't take a shot. Like 4th and 4 at the Ohio State 13, and you are down by 6 points, and you don't go for it. Your offense has been able to move the ball. It was an 11-play drive. Netted them 58 yards.
Do you think he would be coaching? Does he think that if he keeps these games close, he can save his job? Do you think that if he knew he had already lost his job, he would be coaching differently, like an Ed Orgeron situation? Do you think if he knew he was out no matter what, he would be far more aggressive? But he thinks, well, if I keep these games close, and I cover lines for my boosters and stuff of that nature, then maybe they'll bring me back next year and let me try to, run it with somebody else at quarterback. I don't know what you're thinking as a coach to be so conservative when you're bad. It's easy for these bad teams to be super aggressive, to be ultra aggressive, right? Yeah. Because you got nothing else to lose. If you play the game straight up, you're going to get beat. It's just a matter of how much. But if you break the rules, if you play unorthodox style, if you do things that they're not expecting you to do, then you have a chance of pulling off a miracle. You have a chance of doing something special that everybody will remember forever. But playing the game straight up does you no good at all. To just line up in a row, 11 on 11, let's go right at them. When it's time to punt, we punt. When we can kick a field goal, we settle for a field goal. If we don't make it, we don't make it. We tried. This is not what you should be doing. This is how you play when you're a big dog. This is how you play when you're the guy that's playing from the front. This is not how you're supposed to play when you're a 14-point dog, when nobody's expecting you to be in these games.
Well, so there is something to the idea that maybe he hasn't really changed his mentality from being the big dog, because when he was at Oregon as the offensive coordinator, he was a big dog. When he was at UCF, they were a big dog, and now they are.
You don't think he knows that he's not?
I think
by now, at this point in time, you don't think he realizes
he should.
I'm just a puppy playing with big boys.
He should know that. But I think part of the problem is that he has been able to keep some of these games so close so that if we just have one thing bounce the right way for us, we can get this win. And if I coach the same way and we have something bounce our way, then we'll get it done.
When you're just depending on luck, that's just a fool's errand. This is why you got to go. This is why you can't be a coach. You can't hope that something happens for you. We're not paying you millions of dollars that you're going out here hoping that the ball bounces your way. We're paying you substantial amounts of money because you got to be able to figure out the best way to compete against guys, that are lesser than you, equal to you, and better than you. And you have to game plan differently. And if you draw up the same plan for all three of those opponents, then you ain't the guy that deserves to cash a check.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ben jumped in on the comments. Scott Frost is still there because of when he played there. He'll be gone next year, though. Double O'Neill said, Seth said, does Michigan can their coach if they can't beat Ohio State? I don't think so this year. They've been pretty good. Modest Cowboy said, I big agree with you on Ohio State. True freshman quarterback's going to make huge mistakes in big games. Feels like their coaches are a bit worried to open it up since CJ is a freshman. CJ's a sophomore, but this is his first year starting. But at this point in the season, he's a veteran. Like
nobody's a freshman today.
Like, bottom line, like
once you get to November, we're all done being underclassmen.
Exactly.
You've got enough reps, unless this is your first start, like somebody got hurt and you walked in the door. If you started all year, you no longer get the underclassman treatment. You should be a veteran by now.
Yeah, unless you're Chandler Morris, and we saw what Chandler Morris did. So, let's see. Gary Lewis said trivia. The 1 year Frost was offensive coordinator at Oregon. They had lesser talent and experience and didn't do well that lone season. And then Frost left after that season. Yeah, the offense was still pretty good there, but it's that mentality at Oregon where you are expected to be really, really good, and then he took the UCF job. So, but he was a wide receivers coach, I believe, before that. So like he had been at Oregon for a little bit. I don't know. I just don't understand why he does things the way he does. I do want to give a shout out, by the way, Jackson Smith and Jigba, 15 receptions, 240 yards, 1 touchdown for Ohio State. Absolutely showed out. Was the best player on the field yesterday. So Chris Olave, 7 receptions, 61 yards. Garrett Wilson was out for this game. I don't know that it would have mattered had he played, but either way. Did want to bring up another Big Ten game. Illinois 14, Minnesota 6, and brother, I just cannot understand Minnesota at all.
Bielema, baby, 4 wins on the season, already hit the over for the year for my boy.
Got 2 games left. Chance to go bowling. They've still got Northwestern left. They have got who's their next game up against?
Hang on,
Iowa.
I don't think they can win out to go bowling, but maybe hell. Hey, dude,
you never know.
Give them a puncher's chance. They're at Iowa. Going back to Kinnick going to be tough, but
it certainly is. If you look at the numbers in this game, Brandon Peters 7 out of 9 passing for 80 yards and 1 touchdown. Chase Brown has just been unbelievable the last few weeks. 32 carries, 147 yards. They ran for 185 yards. They passed for 80, and they found a way to beat Minnesota, who threw Tanner Morgan threw 2 interceptions. You look at the drive chart immediately, right off the bat, Minnesota threw an interception on their first drive, led to points, and Minnesota, I don't think, can play from behind. I think their entire mentality changes when they are behind in a football game. This is a team now in Minnesota that is 6-3. They were ranked in the top 20 of the CFP playoff. They beat Nebraska. They beat Purdue on the road. They won at Colorado. They hung tight with Ohio State, and yet they lost to Bowling Green and Illinois, both at home.
This is going to be, so I talk about weird resumes. Mississippi State, I think at the end of the year, is going to have the weirdest resume of anybody in the country, in my opinion. This resume is going to be up there. Okay. It's going to be up there.
Yeah.
Just when you look at who they played, who they beat, and who they lost to, and what the expectations were before the season started, you're going to say, what in the hell is this? How do we get here? You play the season a million times over, you don't get something like this.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. Looked up Scott Frost here. He was the offensive coordinator from 2013 through 2015. He was the wide receivers coach from 2009 through 2012. In 2014 is when they made the college football playoff national title game and got blasted by Ohio State. The offenses were pretty good in 2013, 2014. Like Marcus Mariota, that bunch, he was a big dog at that point. Roger Coover jumped in. Frost was O-coordinator at Oregon, national championship. You guys don't know much about the team on the field at Nebraska right now. I know that they don't have as much talent as Ohio State does, and they were still in that game, and he played scared. Period. I don't know what else you want me to say.
I don't care about what he did a decade ago. I don't care about what he did at these other schools because he's not doing that here. Okay. His offenses were good there, but guess what? The head coaches, this is what I always say, Gary, the head coaches at those schools were the offensive geniuses. They were the architects of the offense, not Scott Frost. I know he had the OC title, but he wasn't the architect. All right.
Gary said, I drank the Frost UCF Kool-Aid. I was wrong. It wasn't just you, brother. It was everybody.
Oh, no. We all did. We all thought, because we all thought he was this great offensive mind. He's not. He's a great recruiter when he's at schools that can pull talent. Okay. Yes. But he goes to Nebraska where it's really hard to recruit, and he can't sell the program to kids. He can't get into the South, and he can't get out west, and he can't get to the Northeast where big pockets of talent are and convince kids to go to Nebraska. You need somebody who can either A, do that, or B, who's proven that they are capable of winning with developing talent. We haven't seen Frost develop one player from a 2-star to a 3-star or a 4-star. Not once has he done that since being at Nebraska.
Elvin jumped in. Does Nebraska want to jump in a coaching search with teams like USC and LSU? I don't think they come out good in that group. They are pulling from a different pool.
Oh, yeah.
They're not looking at the same coaches.
They're not looking at the same coaches. And you got to remember, every year, somebody from a high-profile big school is going to be looking for a coach, whether it's a retirement or the coach left or a coach is fired. One way or another, we haven't had a year go by that I could ever remember in my life where big-time programs weren't looking for a coach. So you're always competing against somebody, and Gary's right on that. You're not fishing in the same pond. You're not getting a James Franklin to come talk to you. Mel Tucker's not leaving Michigan State for your school. Like those guys, Lane Kiffin's not leaving Ole Miss for your school. They're not taking those interviews. You're going to be fishing in but here's the thing. I think the pond you can go fish in is a hell of a pond.
Yes.
All right.
It's a really good
pond. I
pond.
think you can go, and I know Purdue fans have got to be hating my guts right now, but I think you can pick up the phone and call Abram and say, hey man, we got a lot more money. And how many kids have you tried to get into Purdue that can't get into Purdue? Guess what? We can get their ass in Nebraska.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
How many of them can't get into Purdue? We can get them in here.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
I'm just saying there are guys that you go after and there are guys that you don't, and you got to kind of know who you are. If you think that you can pull Lane Kiffin, I mean, make the call. If you're the AD, it's your responsibility to make the call. If you think you can get a Jimbo, sure, be my guest. Make that call. That's fine. Yeah. Shoot your shot, but that's not where you're going to fish from.
It's you're 100% right. 100% right. Let's move on to another game right quick because I've got more that I want to hit. We may have to kind of run through them. Texas A&M. Again, I've said this multiple times. I got the saying from you. Texas A&M put Auburn in a locker.
Yeah, they did.
Auburn drove inside the A&M 40-yard line twice. They only got one field goal out of that. You just look at the game overall, and held Auburn to 226 total yards. A&M outgained them 409 to 226. They outrushed them 217 to 73. Isaiah Spiller, 21 carries, 112 yards. Zach Calzada, this is the first game for both of these teams where they have actually played against a good defense in quite some time.
That's right. And both of them struggled.
And both of them really, really struggled. Bo Nix, 20 out of 41, 153 yards passing, and one interception. Tank Bigsby, 15 carries, 69 yards. Auburn could do nothing.
So this game, we want to go fast. So let me tell you what I think about this game. This game is exactly what I thought A&M had to do to win this game, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Against LSU, against Arkansas, and against Ole Miss, Bo Nix did one thing. Bo Nix ran for 200 yards left and right.
Yes.
All right. To get guys open and to make plays down the field. And he did it all day long against LSU, Ole Miss, and Arkansas. He couldn't do that against A&M. A&M put him in a bottle. A&M tackled him. He finished rushing yards for -18 because they kept all of the times that he was able to get away from those other three defenses. He couldn't get away from Texas A&M. And I've said it ever since the LSU game. If you can tackle him and stop him from doing that, then he can't beat you. If he just sits in the pocket and tries to throw dimes and throw lasers, he can't do that. But when he gets to making shit up, he's really hard to stop.
Yes.
A&M didn't allow him to do that, they couldn't get first downs. They couldn't get into, you talked about how few times they even got into the red zone. They finished with 3 points.
Well, I mean, they didn't, I don't even think they got in the red zone, did they?
No, that's what I'm saying. They couldn't
They got inside the 40.
They couldn't even get to the red zone. And that's what I was saying. They made everything really difficult on him. He's a dynamic player if you cannot tackle him behind the line of scrimmage. But if you can, they're tough to beat. And then by doing that, you also bottle up Tank. Tank still got almost 70 yards. That guy is a monster, but he doesn't have the breakaway speed to gas you for 30 yards and a touchdown. He's not scoring from the 40, okay?
Yeah.
It just makes everything hard. I'll tell you this, A&M scored. They better be damn lucky they scored on a couple of defensive plays because they weren't getting much either. Auburn's defense played unbelievable in this game. That's the only reason this game got out of hand was because A&M's defense put points on the board.
They did get in the red zone on both of those attempts. They got to the 15 and they got to the 16.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just it's nuts. And yet I still think Auburn is going to beat Alabama at the end of the season. Because crazy shit happens in Jordan-Hare. Modest Cowboy jumped in, enjoying the high-quality college football talk this morning. No narrative building, just shooting the shit. Very much enjoy it. And Ball Python Love said, I can't wait for next Saturday, Nevada versus San Diego State. Mountain West Championship this week. Yes, you are correct about that, my friend.
Next, it's going to be an awesome game.
Oh,
Where's that? Is that at San Diego?
I think it's at San Diego State. I'll have to look. I don't know. I
haven't looked to next week at all yet, but that's one that's going to be up there.
It most certainly is. Next game on the board here, we have got South Carolina 40, Florida 17. Now, I will go on and preface this by saying that Florida did have a lot of dudes that were taking IVs, and a Ball Python Love said it's at San Diego State. That's right.
There you go.
They had a lot of dudes out with like the flu and whatnot, and that's been going around a bunch of colleges down in Florida, and it's not COVID, it is the flu, like legitimately the flu. Emory Jones played in this game after testing positive for the flu. Now, even still, you would not expect Florida to get completely manhandled by a South Carolina team that could do nothing against anybody, basically all season. This is a team that beat Vanderbilt 21-20 on a last-second touchdown.
They needed a miracle to beat Vanderbilt.
Yes, and yet they were up 30-10 at the half against Florida. Florida didn't look like they wanted to be there. Like this was yards per play. South Carolina averaged 7 yards per play with a first-time FBS starting quarterback in Jason Brown. Now, he came over from St. Francis as a transfer. He had played in the FCS and whatnot, but it's not like this dude was bonkers lights out at St. Francis. I looked up his numbers. He was good. He wasn't. This is not an SEC quarterback. He was a third stringer for a reason. And yet, because of the injury to Zeb Nolan and the injury to Luke Doty, he got called into action. He was 14 out of 24 for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kevin Harris ran all over Florida's defense. 16 carries, 128 yards. Zaquandre White, had 13 carries for 111 yards. Marshawn Lloyd, 7 for 46. Like, South Carolina did anything they wanted to in this game, and it led me to, like, this is the only note that I've got written down here. Dan Mullen admitted that his team threw in the towel after the SEC championship game last year. Like he said, this is not the 20 Florida team that lost to Oklahoma. Like, he told everybody they quit. And now, when you put that out there,
hang on.
Go ahead.
No, finish your statement.
When you put that out there and you give off the vibes that it is acceptable to not give a crap after your goals cannot be met anymore, which after they lost to Georgia, the SEC East was a wash. When they lost to Kentucky, it was a wash. But when you lose to Georgia, it's done, right? Now, again, they do have a ton of guys that had, illnesses and whatever else. I get it. But I'm curious. This is a strange question. Is Dan Mullen trying to get fired?
This is the dumbest shit that we talk about. This is the stuff that I hate, Gary.
All right, go ahead. Give me your thoughts.
So saying that we are not, like, when he lost to Alabama in the SEC title game last year, his season was over with. They were playing an an exhibition game, and we call them bowl games, that don't matter, where all of his upperclassmen aren't going to play anyway. So yes, that's just a practice game. It's just a scrimmage game. It's an exhibition. To say that we weren't like super game planning and we're basically using that for an excuse to get the extra practices going into the next season, and saying that has nothing to do with we're still playing in the damn season.
Okay, then give me your thoughts on what happened yesterday.
They're just bad. They're just a bad football team, Gary. Is that not okay? Like, is it not possible for them to just be bad?
No, it's definitely possible. But
so you think it's more likely? You think it's more likely that a highly competitive individual in the highest competitive field in the world in college football is willing to just tank his resume, destroy his character going forward with any other team trying to get any other job because he just wants to get paid so he can leave? You think he's willing to do that?
See, that's what I don't know, and that's why I'm asking the question.
Know. You do know that. You do know that.
I will tell you this.
If you don't know that, then that's shame on you.
No,
if you don't know that.
I thought that I knew a lot of things. I don't always know everything, so I'm willing to question everything, right? This does not look like a Dan Mullen football team that we have become accustomed to over the years. His teams at Mississippi State never looked like this. Like, they got whipped by some really good football teams. They didn't get whipped by a South Carolina team that was like this, right? It just, I don't know even what to make of what has happened at Florida this season. Like, yes, there were games that they were in that they lost due to mistakes, etc. And there were mistakes made in this ball game, but it wasn't the mistakes that got them beat. It was they just got manhandled the entire ball game. At what point do we look? It's the same question with TCU, right? The TCU that we saw against Baylor, that's way different than what we saw before that.
If the players have quit on him, that's a completely different question. Are you saying that's not what you asked?
Right.
You're asking, is he trying to get himself fired? You're asking, is he putting together a game plan that he knowingly knows is going to lose? That's the question that you just asked.
You're right.
That's not the question.
I had brought up two different topics, and I
because
tried
losing
to
a
meld them
locker room
together.
is totally different. Having your players quit on you is something sometimes you can't control, okay?
True.
If you've made mistakes in the media or you've made mistakes in coaching that have rubbed players the wrong way to a point to where they don't want to play for you, that's a completely different situation, and some of the greatest coaches in the world have done that in the past, by the way.
True.
So that's not an unhireable offense ever again. All right, it's a fireable offense, but it doesn't mean you're blacklisted from ever getting another job. If you openly are throwing games, tanking games so you can get fired and get your buyout, that is a completely different thing, and that's what you asked.
We just lost your video.
I have no idea why. I haven't touched anything. Everything in my house is exactly the same.
Well, we got a nice big picture of you and Chewbacca, so I'm like, we still got your audio, so it's all good.
There we go. I have no idea how that happened, but I literally, my hands were right here being screaming in the thing.
Yeah.
And somehow something got clicked.
Either way,
But that's why I find that question to be ridiculous, Gary.
That is totally fair.
Do you think he's lost the locker room? That's a legitimate question. That's a fair question.
So let's go to that one.
The answer to that.
Let's go to that one.
I don't know the answer.
No, I don't think that he is trying to get fired. I do think that
that's what you asked, though, right?
Right. That's what I asked.
Okay.
Right.
Just making sure that I didn't make that up.
No, you didn't, because I did talk about the team quitting and him possibly trying to get fired at the same time, and I shouldn't have asked it together. The question here is, yes, did the team quit on him? And it kind of looks like that right now. Now, we don't know the extent of all the guys getting IVs. They had to take two separate planes, one with the kids that were sick and one with the kids that weren't, and whatever, right?
What we're not doing? We're not talking enough about South Carolina. South Carolina don't want to hear shit about the players you don't have because they literally have spent 80% of the year playing a GA at quarterback, okay?
Yes.
Because they don't have anybody that can take snaps at the quarterback, and now that guy can't even take snaps, and they're playing somebody who was behind him. So they don't give one hot damn about your inability to bring a fully staffed football team. I'm so sorry that you came into Columbus and got your ass whooped by a bunch of also-rans who nobody else wanted. I'm really sorry that all your stars couldn't make it.
Double O'Neill said, so Florida, is it that good? Do I get to move Georgia's win over a crappy team? Does that get downgraded now? It was downgraded to begin with. When Georgia beat them, they already had 4 losses. Like, this is not a good – this team may not make a bowl game. Like, do I think that they're not going to make – like, I think they will. But then again, I don't know. I mean, Double O'Neill said, oh, my God, my spell checker went insane, not what I typed. Florida is not a good team. They don't look invested at all in this season. They don't care. Anthony Richardson, by the way, did not play in this game. He is still out due to concussion protocol because he got whooped against Georgia, period. But this was embarrassing. I mean, South Carolina, only 1 penalty for 5 yards. They had 459 total yards. They had 175 passing yards, and they were able to run for 284 yards on Florida.
I didn't see this coming. I'm not going to pretend that I predicted this at all. I did think before the season started, South Carolina was going to be bad. They were going to struggle to get wins. I thought they would get one marquee win because it's something that program has kind of historically done. Even when they've underperformed and had bad years, they always find a way to beat somebody they're not supposed to. And I'm not saying a pretty good Missouri team, they beat them. No, I'm talking about a big boy, a blue blood, a one who always belongs. They always find a way to get one of those wins. I didn't see it. I didn't predict it. But before the season started, I thought they'd get one, and they're about out of chances. So,
did you see? Do you remember who it was last year that they beat?
It wasn't last year. 2 years ago it was Georgia, right?
No, that was 2017. 2018. 2018.
That was 18. 3 years ago.
19. I don't remember them having one in 2019.
Maybe
in 2020, early in the season, before Muschamp got fired and everything kind of
fell apart.
Tailspin from there. They beat Auburn, who was a top 15 team in the country at that point.
That's right. It's one of the games that probably cost Gus his job.
Yeah, because Auburn could show up in big spots, but lose to South Carolina.
Because you could have excused a lot of the rest of Auburn's losses, but you can't excuse that one. So that's probably the one that was the coffin in it. That was the nail in it.
More than likely. Let's move off of that. Let's move to Tennessee and Kentucky. Yikes. Just unbelievable. Kentucky ran 99 plays to only 47 for Tennessee. Tennessee had 9.85 yards per play, and that was including the shotgun kneel downs at the end of the ball game. Before those kneel downs, it was actually well over 10 yards a play. They were averaging a first down every time they touched the football.
Every time they touched the ball. So my live feed for SBR yesterday, I talked about this game. This was one of my picks, taking Tennessee. I didn't get a lot right yesterday, by the way. Got a lot big wrong. But this was one I got right. And it didn't go the way I thought it would, but almost everything I thought. Basically, I said Tennessee wants to play fast, and Tennessee wants to score fast, and Kentucky wants to play really slow, and Kentucky wants to score really slow. But I thought both of these teams wanted to run the football because I've seen Tennessee's run game be really good. That's where I was wrong. Hendon Hooker played his absolute balls off in this game, and It was incredible. That kid was slinging darts. He was throwing the deep ball. He was throwing the touch pass. He was lasering balls in when he had to fit them in a window. He made every pass he absolutely had to make. I love watching this kid play football. Also, we're a couple of weeks removed from that Kentucky defense being one of the best defenses in the country, kind of looking a little shitty right now.
You are not wrong about that. Kentucky on offense outgained Tennessee 612 to 461. They outpassed them 387 to 316. The difference there is it took Kentucky 50 passes to get there, and it took Tennessee 20.
Well, some of that is field position though. The reason Tennessee didn't have that many yards is because they were getting the ball at the 50-yard line or 40-yard line a lot, and Kentucky was going from the 25. all day long.
There was a little bit to that. Kentucky rushing yards 225 to 145. Difference there, of course. Kentucky ran the ball 49 times, and Tennessee only had to run it 27.
27. I would have lost my ass off on that because I did play a couple of props in this game because I like this game. I wanted to have my focus on this game for most of the night. I did, and I absolutely lost because I had a lot of Tennessee rushing overs. I had a lot of Kentucky rushing overs, which did pretty well on. Tennessee rushing overs were all losers, and I knew they were going to be losers after the first half. There was no catching up.
Time of possession here. Kentucky 46 minutes and 8 seconds, and Tennessee 13 minutes and 52 seconds. They scored 45 points in 13 minutes and 52 seconds.
One team wanted to play fast. The other team wanted to play slow. That's exactly how it went. I did not see Tennessee getting 10 yards of play.
Hey, per completion.
Never saw that.
It was over 21 yards per completion. Now,
never saw that.
There was a chance. Now, they said the kid stepped out of bounds, but there was a chance that the first 3 passes for Hendon Hooker were going to be 75-yard touchdown passes. Like the first 2 were, and the third one got down inside like the 20-yard line. So, I mean, just absurd. Tennessee, and if you look at Tennessee's schedule coming up, they got Georgia this week. I mean, they're sitting at 5-4, but after that, you got South Alabama and you got Vanderbilt. Strong possibility of 7-5, and the only thing that stands between Georgia and an undefeated regular season really is Tennessee. And who knows? I mean, they got to play in Athens.
So let's play a game.
Okay.
Today, around 3 o'clock, probably around 1 o'clock, that line will come out because it's Georgia, and the whole country will be thinking about it. What do you think that number opens at?
Hold on. Let me grab my sheet here. I think
because I don't. So you do a bunch of metrics, you do a bunch of analytics. I just watch football games. I still think that line is 19. It's not. I bet it's not 3 touchdowns, but I bet it's real damn close.
Nope. I'm going to say it's over 30. I think Georgia minus 22.
Okay, so we're not too far apart, but the 3 scores against. Well, mine, I guess, is 3 scores also. 3 touchdowns against, 3 scores. A little bit of difference.
Yeah, just a little bit. But it'll be around.
It'll be a big number.
It'll be a big number.
If you think Tennessee can make this game close at all, I will tell you this will be the best test that Georgia's defense will actually have faced. Because while they've looked unbelievable, they really haven't played anybody that actually knows how to score the football. Okay.
Yeah. No,
that's not a knock on them. A lot of those guys don't know how to score the football because Georgia just beats the shit out of them.
Yes.
But they haven't played anybody with a capable offense. Now, some of that is a very damning evidence on the SEC. I love this conference. There are only about 3 good offensive teams in this conference this year. That's it. That's the list. And they're all in the West. Well, Tennessee's now in the East, but the other 2 are in the West.
Yeah.
And one of them's not great.
You're right.
Ole Miss isn't great, but they can score. Alabama's pretty damn good. They can score, and Tennessee can score. Other than that, nobody's got an offense that anybody in the country should be scared of.
No, you're not wrong about that. You are not wrong. We have got a few more. I want to just rapid fire kind of through these. Boise State 40, Fresno State 14. Boise's postgame win expectancy was 99%. They were up 16-7 at the half. Difference in this game, I think, was the turnovers. Fresno had 3 of them that led directly to 14 points for Boise. Boise had 1 that did not lead to any points for Fresno. Jake Haener, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, was 22 out of 38, 279 yards. Rodney Rivers was back in this game. He ran 12 times for 79 yards. The difference here was Boise State looked like a completely different football team. George Halani ran 21 times for 117 yards, 5.6 per carry. Like, he looked good, and Hank Bachmeier hit on some pretty big plays. He had a 29-yard pass, a 40-yard pass, a 48-yard pass, a 37-yard pass, a 30-yard pass, a 20. Like, Fresno's defense could not stop him.
That's right.
And that was the tail of the ball game. Like, this was very interesting to look at.
This is the Boise team everybody has basically waited all year for, right? They got a pretty big marquee win against BYU. But other than that win, they haven't really looked impressive for beating anybody in a that anybody thinks is really good.
Well, it all comes back to exactly what I said at the beginning of the show. Volatility and consistency.
That's right. This is a game where Boise said we kicked the shit out of them. And it's a little too late for the Mountain West for it to matter, because I don't think you're getting 2 losses, from Nevada or San Diego State, which we talked about earlier. Like, those teams aren't losing 2 more conference games for Boise to jump them.
Yeah. Clemson 30, Louisville 24. Okay, like I got the cover here with Clemson, but I still don't feel good about them. They looked awful. They looked absolutely awful. Cunningham, post-game win expectancy.
His ass off.
Post-game win expectancy here. Louisville 77%.
Yeah, so because you work under the assumption that final drive, Cunningham played his ass off to get down to the goal line, whatever. The entire fourth quarter, he's limping every play. That guy has played hurt the entire season. Yeah. I don't know that I've seen a game where there's never – what Matt Corral's doing at Ole Miss is unbelievable. Nobody is carrying a team the way Cunningham's carrying Louisville.
Cunningham, by the way, 12 out of 20 passing, 174 yards. He had 22 carries for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that was against a really, really good Clemson defense. He did everything that he possibly could to win this game. Yards per play, Louisville won this 5.7 to 5.1. They ran more plays. They were 6 of 17 on third down, so that hurt, but Clemson was only 5 out of 14, so they outgained Clemson 397 to 338. The fact that they got 223 rushing yards, Louisville did, that's a feat in and of itself against Clemson. Clemson does not allow people to do that because it's not been their defense that has lost them ball games. It has been their offense. And DJ
Satterfield.
Go ahead.
No, I thought Satterfield and Cunningham could move the ball on them and score. They did. They got to 24, and I thought that was going to be enough to win. I didn't think Clemson had the balls to go down the field and punch it in. Absolutely did look like shit doing it, and it looked like it was really hard for them against a not great Louisville team. But then Louisville gets the ball back. They got, it's like a minute 20 left, minute 40, something like that left, and they get right down the field in like 4 plays. And all 4 of those plays, like I said, Cunningham's just crawling himself back to the huddle. And it's just, I don't know what to do. I haven't seen a guy do this much with so little and do it while it looks like he's just in constant pain. That kid's just, he's somebody that I love to watch. Yeah. I don't know that he's great. I don't know that he's the second coming to Lamar or gonna be good on the next level. But what he is for Louisville in college football is special. It's special.
So the beginning of this ball game, how shocked were you to see, knowing what we know about Clemson's offense and Clemson's defense?
That's right.
And knowing that Cunningham is basically the only weapon for Louisville right now.
Correct.
For Louisville to come out of the gate, 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown, and then
score.
And then immediate, Clemson comes back, 3 plays, 75 yards, touchdown.
I'll tell you this. One of those things I thought could happen. The other one I didn't. And it's I thought Louisville was going to be able to score. When they scored fast and scored first, I thought I was right on that, and I liked my chances with that ticket. And then Clemson went down and scored in 3 plays, and I thought, that's not sustainable. Those were the 2 thoughts I had after the first 2 drives. I believed one was sustainable and was what I thought was a little confirmation bias. Yeah. And the other one, I didn't think they could do it all game long. Now, neither one of them were capable of actually doing it all game long. We get a 24-30 final. But I thought God, I would have bet everything in my world that final drive after Clemson scored that Louisville was going to score that touchdown to win it.
I will say this. I want to give Satterfield props.
It.
Yeah, I want to give Satterfield props because he did not play scared, right?
No.
I mean, he, down at the end of the ball game, they had 4 plays that gave them 1 yard. It did lead to the last field goal that made it a 30-24 game, and I think that's what he was thinking is, okay, at the end of the day, we're down by 3. If we give up a field goal, we can, get the ball back with, just a few seconds left on the clock, but, this will be our shot. This is our only shot is if we go for it on 4th down.
Sure.
And they did it. Louisville did have a missed field goal. That sucked. Got down to the Clemson 34.
But the missed field goal doesn't kill it because if they make that, they still need a touchdown, right? Because they're down by 6.
No, well,
another field goal would have tied it.
Another field goal would have tied it because they wouldn't have given up that last field goal by going for it on fourth down. Inside at their own 6 or whatever it was. So the whole thing would have changed had they hit the field goal. But
I was trying to play out the last couple of possessions after that, and I've seen way too many things before to remember exactly how it played out. But
so and also by the way, cheers to Dabo and that bunch for being aggressive. They had a drive that ended on the Louisville 1-yard line. Went for it on fourth down, didn't get it, but it pinned them.
That's right.
So they did a good job. They did a pretty good job.
I thought Dabo and them were going to let him off the hook. They were trying to save clock at the end. Louisville went for it on third down, didn't get it. No, second down, didn't get it. At the end of the game, Dabo and them calls timeout. Louisville and them ran the ball. There was only 40 seconds left. They got 40 seconds basically to get 2 plays off, which means they don't get to huddle and they don't get to sub anybody in because you would eat up all of your 40 seconds. You're not going to get both plays off. As soon as Louisville doesn't get it on second down, Dabo calls timeout. And the announcers are saying, he did that to save his team's clock. If they give up the touchdown, they could still go down and kick a field goal. And
I don't think that's why he called the timeout. I thought he called it to make sure that his team was in the proper formation.
They had the right defense because he thought maybe if we give up the score, it's the ball game because we're not scoring with 20 seconds left.
No.
See, I thought the same thing. I was really curious, but I'll tell you this: I think if he doesn't call the timeout, I think they have a better shot. Now it worked out for them because they got the stop.
Yeah.
If Louisville scores there, I think you can hang that loss on Dabo. I would rather say try to get 2 plays off with a running clock at 40. So by the time you call the second play, we're at 33. And then that play is going to run, and then we're going to spot the football. And then, unless it's incomplete passes. I guess no, because they could have thrown the ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they could have thrown the ball. There's a lot of different things that were going into that last little bit. But cheers to them. Like, Clemson has been bad.
It worked.
Yeah, it all worked out. All worked. Clemson's been bad, but they're not awful, and the defense is still pretty good. So I got 3 more that I want to hit, and we can do them very quickly. Memphis 28, SMU 25. Memphis makes 0 sense this season. Memphis's post-game win expectancy here was 77%. This was I don't get it. Like, Seth Hennigan came back, was 34 out of 53 passing, 392 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Memphis could not run the football. Brandon, God, I cannot remember the kid's name. A guy that they kind of rely on running the football was out for this game. But Memphis's top 2 rushers, Weaver, 10 attempts for 17 yards, and Clark, 10 attempts for 14 yards. SMU kind of shut them down. Overall, 37 carries for 22 yards and 1 touchdown for Memphis on the ground. Tanner Mordecai, what are we doing? 19 out of 28, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And I don't understand what was happening.
Let me tell you where this game just lost me completely. We get 0 points until 2 minutes. I'm looking at 2 minutes, 34 seconds left in the first half. Now, the first quarter, this game is scoreless until the first half is over with. SMU scores with 2 minutes, 34 seconds left. Then Memphis scores with 23 seconds left. And then SMU gets a field goal with 4 seconds left. In 2.5 minutes, we get 3 scores. We got no scores for almost 30 minutes. So in 27.5 minutes, 0, nothing. Just a garbage football game. And I thought, I don't know what in the hell I'm watching. I have no idea. I no longer had faith in SMU at that moment, but I also still don't trust this Memphis team. And then when Memphis comes out, scores 2 unanswered basically in the third quarter, I kind of think, man, we're just not getting enough scoring in this game. That might be an insurmountable lead. Memphis scores a third time, and I think
at the beginning of the fourth,
That's ball game.
Yeah, it was 28-10 at that point. They give up a touchdown with 8.5 left, and then they give up another touchdown with 5 minutes and 53 seconds left to make it 28-25. I just don't. Like, this is what I was worried about, right? There's all these reports that came out about Sonny Dykes, and he's got a contract extension that's been sitting on his desk since before the season started, and he hadn't signed it, and there's all these rumors, all this crap going on, and you never know how that affects a team. And for whatever reason, like, I don't know that that's why they lost this game. Maybe Memphis is a better football team than them. I doubt it.
I don't know that's it, but I do think 18-year-olds are capable of having bad games. 18 to 20-year-olds are volatile individuals, especially 18 to 20-year-old dudes. And Tanner Mordecai didn't look like the guy that we have seen for the first 5-6 weeks of the season.
Yes, 100%.
He looked bad. I don't know if it was play calling. He did not look comfortable in that football game at all.
Yeah, he never did. Never did. Iowa State 30, Texas 7. Texas led this ball game 7-3 at the half, and then gave up 27 unanswered in the third and fourth quarter.
Football game.
Total yards here: 476 for Iowa State to 207. Texas had 103 passing yards to 301. So Brocktober may be over, but nobody told Brock Purdy. Rushing yards: 175 to 104 for Iowa State. Iowa State had 23 first downs to only 11. Iowa State was only 3 of 13 on third down, but it didn't matter. Like, this was not turnovers. Like, Texas had 2 of them that led to 6 points for Iowa State. Iowa State had 1 that led to 0. You look at the numbers here, and this was just, again, another example of a team putting another team in a locker. They slowed down Bijan. I didn't think that was capable. Bijan, 90 yards, 0 touchdowns. If you do that, you're going to beat the hell out of Texas, and that's kind of what they did. Breece Hall, I thought this was going to be the best running game in the Big 12. Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Breece went off, Bijan didn't. Yeah. That was the game. That's the ball game right there. Yeah, Breece Hall, 7.2 yards per rush, 19 for 136 and 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 receptions for 13 yards. They didn't have anybody else that showed up on offense for Texas. No. Bijan had 8 receptions for 36 yards. 8 receptions on 8 targets, by the way.
That's right.
Double O'Neill said, Chris and Gary, how many of the games do y'all actually watch? So I've got 3 TVs behind me, 1 that's right here, and I've got 3 computer monitors, and I've basically got games on all day. Games that I sit and specifically focus on, I might have 1 per Saturday that I am only tuned into that one. But for the most part, I'm watching as much action as I possibly can. So I bet I had my eyes on at least 30-something games yesterday. Chris, how many do you watch?
I think it's a wildly inefficient way to watch football, and I don't find that enjoyable at all. I have a 2 TV situation, one that I keep the sound on, and the other one, if there's 2 games that I really want to watch at that time period, then I can do. They're on like a corner wall, like one's here, so I kind of see them both. If there's one game that there's a second game that I don't care about during a window of time, I'll flip back and forth on the TV with no sound. But that's it. I can't do there's 9 games on at one time, because then you don't see anything. The fact that you had the Cincinnati game on and you didn't even see that Jerome Ford got hurt. You didn't know that their best player got hurt. Like, that, you're not able to watch that game. You didn't see anything that happened in that game. You're just seeing big plays if a big play happens. And I just think it's a wildly inefficient way to watch football. I don't find it personally enjoyable. I've got 2 large TVs. I can watch both of them and see everything that's going on. I keep the sound on one, and the other one is the TV that kind of gets flipped back and forth between games. And
that's so my thing is I have this many games on so that if something important is happening at a specific moment, then I can pay attention and see what's happening.
But if something important's happening, then we're going to see it because everybody's going to share the highlight out.
Yeah, okay. I can see where you're coming from.
That's why I don't understand that logic. It's you can't find it to do anything, but also don't multitask. Like when I'm sitting and watching football, you could listen. My wife is not real pleased with this, but I'm not doing anything else. Okay. Yeah. It's not like I'm in the kitchen making bread and mopping the floor and then, I got an eye on the game. No. I'm sitting and I'm watching. I enjoy this. This is what I enjoy.
This is what I do. You do the same thing on NFL Sundays.
That's right.
So when I'm actually at games, I think I figured out the Varsity Network, Learfield Sports' app. they have this thing called the College Football Blitz, where they take you live to like big moments in games basically all day. And that has actually been really entertaining this season. So whenever I'm actually in Tuscaloosa or I'm at the Liberty Bowl or whatever else, that's what I pay attention. So I've got my earpiece in, and I'm listening to that to keep up with everything else that's going on. Last thing I wanted to hit on was the Academic Prowess Bowl up in Seattle. That was a rainstorm and everything else that you could think of. Oregon 26, Washington 16. Cristobal's comments after the game. I pulled these up specifically. I wanted to read them. Everything played into Mario Cristobal's hand, from his rival repeatedly placing his foot in his mouth to the weather that allowed Travis Dye and the Ducks to obliterate the Huskies on the ground. Oregon erased an early deficit, quieted the crowd by the half, and then snuffed anything interesting out of this game in front of a mostly empty Husky stadium in the second half. The Ducks won 26-16. They are 8-1 with a one-game lead in the Pac-12 North, and after a week of playing everything close to the vest, Oregon's fourth-year coach unleashed when he reached the visiting locker room. Those fucking guys right there, Cristobal said of Washington, captured through multiple players' live social media feeds, which, again, I don't know why players would be live streaming their coach in a locker room after a game, but either way, he said, Washington represents everything that's wrong with football, so when you kick their ass, you let them know it. Okay, so before this game, Jimmy Lake, of course, saying all these things about how they are not recruiting rivals with Oregon. They recruit against higher academic schools like Notre Dame and Stanford and blah, 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 which is just a joke. I mean, honestly, he might deserve to be fired because of the comments, but either way. Cristobal, I don't know that a 10-point win is an ass-kicking, first off. Second, Jimmy Lake punting in that position late in that ballgame. What are you doing? Like, I almost don't know that he's going to get another season. Oregon, as far as an ass-kicking total stats and whatnot, yes. Washington had 166 total yards in this game. They were up 9-3 at one point, but Oregon had 427 total yards. They ran for 329 on Washington. This was a bludgeoning that ended with only a 10-point spread between the teams. Jimmy Lake, by the way, did you see this at the end of the game? The AD had to issue a statement because Jimmy Lake appeared to shove and strike his own player on the sideline. Like towards the end of the game.
He struck it. The kid wore a helmet, and he slapped the kid on the helmet because the kid shoved another player that was running out of bounds. And instead of like catching him or kind of keeping him from falling, he shoved the kid. Yeah. Here's the thing. So I didn't see that in real time. But also, like, Jen Cohen issued the statement because enough people were making, and I don't think that people should be worrying about this crap. But
this
Jim
is the same
Cohen
thing
the statement Jim Cohen should make is he's coaching his kid up, okay? Shut the hell up. Yeah. And if that's your child, then one person has the right to have any comment on that. The parent of that child.
Yes.
That child is a 19 or 20-year-old grown-ass man. All right.
The coaches
just shoved another opponent.
The coaches that have the capability of going through that without anything popping up for them is the ones that are actually winning, that you don't have controversy around them anyway, right? And Jimmy Lake, with his comments earlier this week, kind of put himself out there for everything to be scrutinized. And I don't know what to make of Jimmy Lake.
Has a lot to be criticized for. Coaching this kid up, popping him in the helmet.
I don't think that's one of them. I'm with you.
Let's get over ourselves, please. This is a grown-ass man playing a very, contested collision sport. Being popped in the helmet is nothing. It's what we do when we celebrate. Why is it wrong to do it when you're coaching? Like, don't act like he struck a kid. Fuck you. Struck a kid. God dang, man. What are we doing? All right, Jimmy Lake is an idiot, okay? And he deserves to be treated like an idiot, but let's criticize him for the things that he says and the things that he does that's actually wrong, all right? Let's criticize him for being a mediocre coach, and let's criticize him for saying stupid things, all right? Washington is no different than Oregon. They're literally the same. They're recruiting the same kids. The reason they settle for kids that they're trying to win over Stanford is because they can't get the kids that go to Oregon, okay? Because Oregon is just a much cooler place to be than Washington. And some of that is a Nike thing, and some of that is the coaches at Washington aren't excited to be around.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
But anybody who wants to use the word struck a kid, that's somebody who's never been struck in their life.
That's also somebody that doesn't understand coaching at all. Like, it just does not get it. They
probably don't understand a lot about parenting either, by the way.
You're probably right about that. The end of this game, where Washington gets the ball with 2 minutes and 9 seconds left, and they have 3 straight incompletions, and it's 4th and 10 at their own 10 with 1:57 left, and you are already down by 10 points. What is
this is where
you're down by 8 points, right?
Yeah.
While I can understand the safe coaches, you're only down 1 possession. You want to try and maybe make the other team make a mistake. I get that. But
that other team has the lead. They're not going to make if the other team was behind, then they might make a mistake. But what do you think? You're going to need a pick 6? They're not going to throw the football.
And instead, in trying to make the other team make the mistake, they in turn made the mistake and turned it into a 2-score game because they punted the ball, or they snapped the ball, and the punter couldn't hold on to it. It goes out of the back of the end zone, whatever. It's a safety. But you don't give your kids a chance to win the game. And I understand Dylan Morris did not exactly play well. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. For the game, he was 15 out of 27 passing for 111 yards and one interception. Excuse me. They were not. I don't know what you do there. Like, they are going to have to fire at least John Donovan, but there are so many people that are not in on Jimmy Lake that I don't know that you can afford to give him another season because the season ticket holders are bought out.
Are we thinking they're going to?
Yeah, there's a possibility. I mean, it's only his second season. His first year was a COVID season.
Nobody believes that, right? Nobody believes that. This is a team that lost to Montana before the season started. No, Jimmy Lake's not coming back next year, Gary. Nobody on this coaching staff is going to survive this.
It's not just the Oregon. I mean, they only got beat by 10 by a top 5 team, right?
Nobody is surviving this coaching staff. This team is bad. This team is underperformed, and they've lost a lot of games that they should have won. No, they're not coming back. We're having a wasteful conversation. This is pointless.
You're probably right. I think that's a pretty good time for us to close this thing out. So
close it out.
Double O'Neal, Gary Lewis, all of these guys that have jumped in on the chat. Ball Python Love, Seth and Elvin and everybody else. Roger, we appreciate you guys for jumping in on the chat. You make it much more entertaining for us on these Sunday morning shows. We went nearly 2 hours today, and my God, it's glorious. I love doing these reaction shows, and we've only got a few of them left. So we appreciate these for as long as we have them. Double O'Neal said thank you for the show. Love it. Hey, cheers to it. Don't forget, subscribe to the podcast, and, of course, share it out. Tell your friends about it, all that good stuff. If you have not already, like the video, subscribe, all that. I didn't even get to the ad earlier, but the show is brought to you by BetUS, where the game begins. You can make sure and sign up using the promo code NCAAF 2021. You get 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,500, and it is sportsbook exclusive, so take advantage of that. There is a link in the description. You can click it. It's going to toss the promo code in there for you. Chris does the Sportsbook Review college football show. I do the BetUS college football show. You can, of course, get more college football content from us over there as well. Chris, Sportsbook Review up on YouTube now?
No, we're still on Twitter.
Still on Twitter. Okay, so go and follow at SBR Sports Picks on Twitter. You can also follow us. I'm at Gary WCE. Chris is at Chris B. Giannini. With that said, let's go ahead and get out of here. Let's go watch NFL. Let's do something productive. All right, gentlemen and ladies, of course, we hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And hopefully, all of your tickets cash this week. Thanks for checking out Winning Cures Everything. If you want to keep up with us, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Visit the website at winningcureseverything.com, or you can like us on Facebook or follow us at Winning Cures, at Gary WCE, or at Chris B. Giannini on Twitter. Share out the show, leave a nice review, and make sure to comment and tweet